Mhm. Yeah, I know. I use that. Hey, Rainey.
Hi, Linda.
Hey, Rainey. I see that you unmuted. Hope you're doing well. Hi, Hope. All right, let's see. Hi, Esther. Hi, Diane, David. Who have I missed? Hope's kitty cat. Lots of good karma for the kitty cat here in Venerable Robina's teachings. So we're going to get started probably in any minute now. So for those of you here in the Gampa, we should be getting going very soon. So welcome everybody. It's good to see you. Just a quick reminder for those in the Gampa, we prostrate after Venerable Robina. And for those of you on Zoom, if you can leave your camera on, that's awesome because we do have a monitor right in front of Venerable Robina, so she sees everybody. And, definitely wants to include you in the class as well. So if you can, I know sometimes there's like issues with signal and whatnot, but we should be getting started any moment now. And one more thing on Zoom, if you do have questions when Venerable Robina opens it up for questions, you can either do the little raise your hand symbol or put it in the chat or anything like that. So, feel free to ask questions as well. Hi, Lloyd. Hi, Patty and Hamit and Terry, Dawn, Rachel, everyone that's just joining. Welcome. Venerable Robina's just arrived.
All right. Okay. We're here. Hello there, Herb. What are we going to talk about? What was it again? Six perfection. Okay, so we think we're here together to listen to Buddha's views about the world, Buddha's experiential observation about how the world exists. Put it that way. His experiential observation of how things exist. And particularly, we're going to look at the more advanced stages of the practices of a bodhisattva. So why are we doing this? Is because the big picture, the big view, the long-term one is that so we can become like that ourselves. So we can become a bodhisattva. So we can become finally a Buddha, which for the Buddha is our natural potential. And we just express that thought. The second two lines of our prayer express that. May I become a Buddha for benefit to others. And the first two lines are reminding us of our reliance on the Buddha and the teachings, taking refuge. Sangye charang soke chognamla jangchu baru dagni kyapsuchi dagi chernyen gipe sonam ki drola penche sangye drupa shok sangye charang soke chognamla jangchu baru dagni kyapsuchi dagi chernyen gipe sonam ki drola penche sangye drupa shok sangye charang soke chognamla Jangchu baru dagni kyab suchi, dagi chunyen gipe sonam ki, drola penchir sange, drupa shok. I really think, as I mentioned this, I think in our culture, what attracts a lot of people to a spiritual path is this whole idea of compassion, isn't it? Love and compassion. But what's interesting on the Buddhist path is the most advanced level, which I think surprises us. And then again, also I hear many people, it's so common, they say, oh, I can have compassion for others, but not for myself. Well, this from the Buddhist perspective, if we look at the Lam Rim, the practical application of the step-by-step, tools on the path, the structure, this Lam Rim, which I like to call in a simplistic way, junior school, high school, university. University is the compassion wing. So if you understand that, that means to get to university, you've got to be qualified. You've got to do some earlier work first. You can't just leap into university level, and that really is the point. I remember always quoting either Lama Zopa Rinpoche says, compassion is not enough. No, he says, meaning well is not enough. Meaning well. Oh, I meant well, You need wisdom. And His Holiness says, I've heard him say, compassion is not enough. You need wisdom, okay? So what we're supposed to talk about here is that the more advanced levels, even of the compassion wing, the higher stages of it, which is these so-called perfections of the bodhisattva. And these are the practices, if we take it from the point of view of a person who's actually at the levels of it, this is a person who's already got bodhicitta, which is kind of insanely, outrageously advanced, It's the practices of that person practicing, continuing on their path to become a Buddha. So even though the six perfections, we already assume the bodhicitta is there, I think it's important to talk about what that means before we discuss the perfections. It's really crucial. And then, of course, if you want to discuss compassion, you have to see it in the framework of the earlier stages of the path. That's why this analogy that a bird needs two wings, I just love it. It's so powerful. A bird needs two wings, wisdom and compassion. So, of course, wisdom is confusing to us. It sounds something like, what's that got to do with the price of fish, wisdom? But it really just means, from the Buddhist perspective, is the first stages of the practice, which is as they always say, the first the first and second scopes of the Lam Rim, which is the practices that we share with the Hinayana path. That's how they put it. So it's all the practice. If you were in Burma or Thailand, you'd learn about karma, and you'd abide by the laws of karma. You'd take refuge. You control your body, speech, and mind. You'd learn about your mind. You'd get renunciation. You get rid of and you get rid of attachment. That's the wisdom wing. So first of all, why is it called wisdom? Of course, the final wisdom is when you've cut the root of all the nonsense and you realize emptiness. But that component, even though it's Hinayana teaching, emptiness is actually a Hinayana teaching, that comes into the perfections. On the Mahayana path, you learn that as one of the perfections of the Bodhisattva, which we'll get to, of course. But the wisdom component, in a simple sense, is not complicated. We can see, if you are caught up in attachment and anger and depression and jealousy, the tools to help that are in the first stages. So the explicit reason behind the practice of controlling your body and your speech and then your mind is the reason behind that. The explicit instruction is to refrain from harming others. Why? Because they harm you. But when we start to understand our mind, we're going to realize that being caught up in attachment and anger and jealousy and whatever causes one thing, which is unhappiness. That's why they're called disturbing emotions. But the other thing is because those disturbing emotions have this delusional component. We discussed this, the delusional component. When you're angry, it exaggerates the ugliness of the person. When you're attached, it exaggerates the deliciousness of something. So they're the emotional problems, but they have this added component because they're misconceptions. They misrepresent the world back to us, as Lama Zopa says. So when you're caught up in your own misery, we can see this. You're isolated, you're locked into yourself, and you're totally involved in I. So you can't see past your own nose. Therefore, you don't have much wisdom. And that means you really just are driven by your own neuroses, driven by your own misery. So you're not in touch with things. It's very clear. You know that if someone's really depressed, the whole world is seen as this horrible, depressing place, And if you're angry, the whole world is seen as this horrible place. You're paranoid and see conspiracy theories everywhere, So that literally means you haven't got much clarity. You're not in touch with how things are. And that's a curious concept for us, not being in touch with how things are, That's Buddha's thing. That's his thing. In fact, what he says is the main cause of suffering. This is Four Noble Truths. We started. The main cause of suffering. The first cause of suffering is a result of the actions we do that harm others. But the main cause of suffering is the neuroses in the mind that drive us to do those actions, which cut us off from others, which means we're not seeing others clearly. We have no wisdom. So when we start talking, we're going to go talk about compassion. One of the biggest obstacles for us with compassion is that because we've still got attachment, we can't see clearly what's going on. We're driven by so much emotion. We're pulled from pillar to post. So literally, wisdom is a very good point. So the real thing the Buddha is saying is, as you develop your mind, you get less and less suffering, but you get more and more wisdom, more and more clarity. And literally, as you develop and get single point of concentration, you get the wisdom of having clairvoyance. Now, that's a very hippie trippy idea to us in our culture. You don't go to your doctor and ask for methods to get clairvoyance. You don't go to your therapist and ask that. They think you're crazy. But that is absolutely one of the consequences of Buddhist practice. It's all there in the teachings. That the technique is completely extant. This amazing technique invented by these Hindus is fundamental to the Buddhist development of your mind. So as you start to get less and less suffering, more and more discipline, less and less suffering, more and more happiness, but also more and more wisdom. There's no question. Even just becoming less attached and less angry, you're going to get more wisdom because you're not so involved in your own little bubble. So it's a really main point. It's not some strange idea. And once you get clairvoyance, then you realize emptiness. You're really getting wisdom then. You're really getting wisdom. And why do you need wisdom? Because that informs your ability to know how to help others. So the compassion wing, if you like, is the wish to help others. But that's the crucial point. But that's not what enables you to help others. It's wisdom. That's really vital. It's wisdom that enables us to help others. So in a simple sense, in an ordinary sense, simple or worldly one, it's obvious. If you don't even know how to put a Band-Aid on, you can have as much compassion as you like for someone who's broken their leg. Compassion's helpful, but if you don't have the wisdom to know how to help them, you're useless. That's the idea, in spiritual terms. That's the idea. It's not just compassion. That's not nearly enough. You have to be informed. And that's part of the development of your mind. You become more and more clear because you've worked on your own mind. You understand yourself. You've got wisdom that knows how to stop suffering. That's the wisdom you're getting. Then that informs your ability to help others. That's the really important point, So look at that. Let's look at the definition of compassion. It's all of these. We discussed this a bit. All of these different states of mind we have. We mentioned this. We live at a fairly gross level of our mind. We've got the sensory consciousness, but then we have our mental consciousness, and we have within that the mental consciousness. There are the neurotic, deluded, I-based, states of mind, the ones that cause us suffering, and the ones that cause us to harm others, the ones that cause us to have zero wisdom. And then there are those that are called the virtues, the positive states of mind. And they're absolutely and totally different. And this is kind of a really unique approach in Buddhism. And I think if we're going to want to become Buddhists properly and really practice, if we don't understand the mind properly, you can't say you can be a Buddhist properly. You can't. If you don't know the difference between attachment and love, you're in serious trouble, If you don't know the difference between anger and compassion, you're in trouble. So we know the words anger and love. But this clear distinction that Buddhist psychology makes is very, very important to put into practice and to understand, So compassion is a thought, a concept. The bare bones compassion starts with, it's a conceptual thought. So remember we discussed the mind. We've got sensory consciousness, which is very limited. Our capacity to cognize shape and color, our capacity to hear sound, tactile experiences, they're very limited. But because our mental consciousness is so vivid, which is where the workshop is, as Lama Zopa says, all your thoughts and feelings and emotions, and they all kind of come along together. We confuse, we're not clear about which part of our mind does which job. And that's really important, you know, we discuss this. So compassion is in the mental consciousness, but so are the delusions, attachment, anger. All of these are by definition mental consciousness, mental states. And then this is the crucial part here, that the mental consciousness has two levels of cognition. There's the level that we are very familiar with, and which is all we think about, and which is all that our psychology and neuroscientific models think about, posit, discuss, is the grosser level. We don't even posit this subtler level, which is what these amazing Indians discovered, literally, through the technique called single-pointed concentration. They literally discovered the subtler levels of one's own mind. And this is the crucial component we need to really get far on the path. And of course, to do that initially, you've got to give up sex, drugs, and rock and roll and go to the mountains for several years. You know, you can't get single-pointed concentration after breakfast while taking care of your kids, unless you're very advanced. Not possible, you know. So this is a major sort of part of of the wisdom wing. So the wisdom wing technique's all about yourself. Put it that way. The compassion wing are all about others. That's the difference, you know. But I think even that we don't like that in the West. Oh, that sounds selfish. You know, the whole of the renunciation that we talk about, the renunciation, the first and second scopes, controlling your body and speech, abiding by the laws of karma, purification every day, controlling your body, controlling your speech, disciplining yourself, disciplining your body, your behavior, your body, your speech. And why? Not because, that's the thing that's so important to remember. A negative action, remember, is one, let's say, is one that you do with your body and speech that harms another. And what makes it negative is the harming, yes, but what's it negative from this side is it's informed by one of the neurotic states of mind. It's informed by a delusion. And that, so Buddha exhorts us in the first stages of practice. It's all about ourselves. It's got nothing to do with compassion. If you see the stages of the path in order, when you hear the first stages, it's got nothing to do with being kind to others. That's the compassion wing. There's different instructions, you know, but we mix them all together. The wisdom wing is about oneself. You need to learn. We need to learn to discipline the body and speech, to abide by the laws of karma. Why? Because refraining from the actions of harming others is the method to help oneself, is the method to help oneself. So you've got to want to stop suffering. You've got to want to be happy. Literally, want it. That's what drives you to do it. To want to be, for your sake. We're almost scared to say that. Oh, no, that sounds selfish. We don't understand the path. That's why we say, oh, I have compassion for others, not myself, because we haven't done the wisdom wing properly first. This is so serious. We're so scared to say, I want to be happy, or that's selfish. I want to help others. Yes. Well, you can't help a fly if you can't help yourself. If you don't know the mind, if you don't know what suffering is, if you don't know what the causes are, all of that's the wisdom wing, the Four Noble Truths. And you are the beneficiary of that. When Buddha talks about don't kill, don't steal, don't lie, he's not talking about your husband. It's about you, you know, how you can get happy, how you can stop suffering. You have to want to stop suffering. You have to want to be happy. That's what drives the wish to abide by the laws of karma and work on your mind. You are the beneficiary. Then, because, you know, you're following Buddha's instructions about how to you to get happy, and then as you do that, and as you get more content and less neurotic, you also are kind of removing the layers from your mind that cut you off from others and cause you to live in la-la land. And you're going to start realizing we're all in this boat together. And now you're qualified. You're more stable, strong, your mind's more clear. You now are able to see others more clearly and therefore have more compassion. And finally, we didn't finish all the three kinds of suffering. We only did the first kind, the first two. Then eventually because of our wisdom into understanding suffering and its causes, then we are able, we're qualified to have compassion for everybody, not just the poor little, the little baby, the child and the animal. I think the only ones we have compassion for these days, first they have to be innocent victims. So they're mostly children and animals. And only some animals, not the rat, not the cockroach. No, thank you. The little cute one, the little babies. As long as they're nice babies, then we'll have compassion. It's too sentimental. It's too limited. Compassion. Okay, what's the definition is of compassion? I kept going to it. I forget it. I can't get to say it. It is a thought that is saying you see suffering and you see it and you go, may you not suffer. That's the definition of compassion. And of course, you grow that to an incredible degree. Love is, may you be happy. It's as simple as that, May you not suffer. So if you're having the thought, may you not suffer, then you better define what suffering is and write back to the Four Noble Truths, back to the first of the four. What is suffering? First one is suffering of suffering, when the bad things happen. And our trouble now is they're the only ones we have compassion for, the poor people and the sick people. Like I said, Andre and Herb don't go to visit rich people in their houses in the fanciest suburbs and help them. They go to the poor people in the prisons. Do you understand my point? Now you start visiting the rich people. We think, oh, they're not suffering. That's Buddha's point. In fact, the second kind of suffering, the suffering of attachment, caused by attachment, is much more nuanced and harder to see. So if you're going to have compassion, you got to understand what suffering is. By definition, if you can't, you're in trouble. So it's a sentimental, And then the other thing is, and I want to talk about this today. We can begin the perfections tomorrow, but this is like the prelude, understanding about compassion, The other thing is, in our daily lives, unless we are clear about what attachment is, what jealousy is, what anger is, and able to recognize these different components of our own mind, then the compassion we do have, the virtue we do have, the kindness and love and patience we do have are polluted by those neurotic states of mind, and we can't tell the difference. And that's what paralyzes us, So let's look at the difference between love and attachment, for example. Just love and attachment. So love. It's in the virtuous remember 3 categories of states of mind in the mental consciousness: the neurotic, I-based, limited, delusional, disturbing. So many terms we can use. Afflictions, mental afflictions. Well, a better term is mental illness. It's a very good point. We're very shocked by that. Only people down that end of the spectrum have got mental illness, and I'm normal. Well, Buddha's deal, I think he would have liked the term mental illness. It's such a good definition of a mental affliction. Affliction is the term they use in the Sanskrit and then in the Tibetan. Affliction, bit old-fashioned word. We mightn't use it, but a sickness is an affliction. Well, we're talking mental sickness here, mental illness. And break down those words. Attachment is a mental illness. Anger is a mental illness, really and sincerely. But when we say mental illness, it's a very different way of thinking, It's usually something you can't help. It's not your fault. Poor me. If you have compassion for someone who's got depression, because now we label it a mental illness, because we've got to found a pill that fixes the physical body that enables a person to get less depressed. So we call that a mental illness. But I don't think I've ever heard anybody say anger is a mental illness. You don't feel sorry for angry people, do we? It's the same state of mind. So we see it differently, But they're mental illnesses. I think it's the best term to use instead of the word mental affliction, mental illness. Then you've got the second category, the so-called virtues, the positive, virtuous, useful, appropriate, valid states of mind. So valid doesn't mean in a moralistic sense, you're a good girl. Valid means states, and this is the thing that's interesting until we start studying Buddhist psychology in more depth, this component of the wisdom one or lack of wisdom doesn't make much sense to us. So one of the qualities, one of the characteristics of the negative states of mind, and this is the informs the explicit instruction in the middle scope, is the disturbing character of attachment and anger and jealousy. So the Buddha's instructions in the middle scope is to calm down your attachment, calm down the anger, lessen the depression, lessen the anger, lessen the jealousy. Why? Because they disturb you. We're not discussing compassion for others here. This is what we'd call compassion for ourselves. They are what harm me. So the other aspect, the other component, the other characteristic these unhappy states of mind have, and this is the one so important to understand, is that they are misconceptions. They mislead, they misrepresent the world out there back to us. Put it like that. Lama Zopa says that way. We can start to understand that component. We're really beginning to understand why anger and attachment cause us suffering. Otherwise, it's just emotional, you know. And that's when we understand in the mental consciousness, we've got the grosser level, which is the conceptual. All the level we function at. We function at the conceptual level of our mind. In our world, we think of emotions as one thing, and then up here is conception. It's a very different way to to analyze. The Buddha's approach, it's mental consciousness, not just sensory, it's mental, and then there's the grosser level, which is conceptuality, including thoughts, concepts, thoughts about math, thoughts about musical theory, and thoughts that are informed by the emotional component, which is called anger, attachment. They are conceptual thoughts. But because we've practiced them for countless lives, they're totally second nature. That's why they've got this emotional component. And that's why we don't notice them until our body feels them. This is our biggest mistake, I think, in the West. We don't even notice that we're angry or jealous unless it's exploding, unless it's really emotional. And emotional means your body's involved. That's what we mean by it. Emotion means your body's involved. You feel it in your body, we say. But if it's very quiet, if you got very quiet, if you got, we're not noticing a deeper level. That's why we have to have concentration meditation, so we can go deeper, dig deep, unpack, deep down into our own mental consciousness and begin to hear at a subtler level the conceptual stories, the conceptual, the concepts that inform our emotions and therefore inform our behavior. Initially, it's hard to see. It sounds almost like a joke to say that anger is a conceptual state of mind. When you're seeing that kid screaming and yelling, having a mental breakdown, oh, that's a conceptual thought, anger. We think, don't be ridiculous, But when you analyze, what is it? Well, it's not the body. We think anger is to do with the body. We think depression is about the body. We think anxiety is about the body. No, it's your mind that informs your physical experiences. That's for sure. But then that's why we don't notice them until they become emotional. We don't notice them until they impact upon our body, So this aspect of anger and attachment being conceptual thoughts initially is confusing, but when we understand properly Buddhist psychology and you study low-rig, you'll understand that, So we live at that conceptual level. We live at that conceptual, like we said about the cup. Your eyes see shape and color. Then what's the rest of it? Pretty cup, nice person, ugly person. All the rest of it, from the second we start go beyond our senses, it's all conceptuality. It's all these opinions and viewpoints and ideas and theories and opinions about things. That's mental. Some of them are emotional and some are more conceptual, but they're all mental and they're all at the grosser level of being informed by concepts. So there you have a person, a child, your puppy dog, your hubby, and you say, I love you. So what do we mean by that? Well, love is in the second category of states of mind, the virtuous ones, the positive ones, the altruistic ones, the useful ones, the ones from our point of view, this is the point, that are the source of our own happiness. Virtuous states of mind are what cause us happiness. Don't be ashamed. You've got to learn that. Negative ones make you miserable. It's so clear. So I love you, we will say. Okay, I think it's good to see these now, or discussing here in the framework of the three poisons, in the framework of the techniques that get us to get bodhicitta, which are prelude to the six perfections. So the accomplishment, which is where we enter into the bodhisattva path from the wisdom wing. And the very first technique is taught in the techniques to cultivate bodhicitta, then after which you then do the six perfections. So let's look at this very first one. It's called equanimity. It's a really helpful framework. So, there's I think there's two techniques, I forget the names, two kind of systems of cultivating bodhicitta. One is the one cause and six effects, or the 7 point something, and one is the one of exchanging self for others. I think there's these two. But there's Pabonka Rinpoche in his Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand, he puts these two together and it turns into 11 little techniques. There's 11 little techniques, And the starting point, the foundation, the basis, the fundamental starting point is this practice, the development of equanimity. So on the Hinayana path component, on the first stages of Lam Rim, equanimity is spoken about as a quality that you will cultivate as you control your body, speech, and mind, as you start to grow up and start becoming disciplined and not up and down like a yo-yo, become more emotionally stable. You become more emotionally stable. You have more contentment in yourself. That's how we can describe this, in that case, equanimity. But in the Mahayana component, it's a completely different characteristic. It's related to sentient beings. It's related to how we divide everybody. And equanimity is so powerful when we understand this one. And this can really help us see the distinction between the neurotic states of mind and the virtuous ones, which is the vital part of our development in order to continue get bodhicitta and carry on the path, Just hang on, drink a cup of water. Okay. Equanimity, all right, what is it? Well, I'd say, in my words, equanimity is this, when you've got it, is this heartfelt recognition that a person called a friend, which is the term in this framework, the term we use for a person we are attached to, okay? Attachment's a delusion. The person we're attached to. That the person whom we call a friend, the object of our attachment, the person we call an enemy, we mightn't use that term, but it's a useful term for the person whom we have aversion for, And the third category, stranger. So we have friend, enemy, stranger. Such simple words. So they are the terms we use for the object in terms of sentient beings. In the earlier stages of how to deal with attachment and everything, it's all to do with things, mostly the objects of the senses. So we're trying to give up attachment, to the objects of the senses, and that could include a person. But here, in order to really develop compassion, we have to know these really clearly. It's a whole new different way of seeing clearly the distinction between the virtues and the non-virtues. It's so helpful. So back to the wisdom wing. As we all know, Buddha talks about the three poisons. If you read any Buddhist book, second page you're going to read, you're going to talk about the three poisons, So that means these three main neurotic states of mind. And you always learn about, they keep talking about the 84,000 neurotic states of mind. I always ask the Geshis, what text can I get that list, please? They say you won't. But Buddha talked about it. It must be there. We have to maybe extrapolate and make it up ourselves, But as Ling Rinpoche often says, and I know he was here, that young Ling Rinpoche, he often says 21,000 of those 84,000 have the particular, these are my words, particular characteristic or are rooted in the first of the three, ignorance. 21,000 of them are rooted in or have the characteristic or flavor of attachment. 21,000 are rooted in or have the characteristic of anger. And the fourth 21,000 have a bit of everything. So it's very nice. I like that, Because the three poisons, everything subsumes to them. And then those three, as we talked, they've got not just these random choice of the Buddhas, oh, anger, attachment, ignorance. It sounds like a weird bunch of states of mind. Who would have think there's a relationship between them? But there's a hierarchical relationship, you know. The root one, as we all know, we'll get to it in the weekend, the root ignorance, the root one, the main one, the one such that when you've uprooted it, that's the realization of emptiness. The root ignorance, maripa, unawareness of how things finally exist, but ignorance in general, ignorance about cause and effect, ignorance about many things, general ignorance, but specific one, the root one, ego grasping, colloquially we can say it's that. That's the root. Then on the basis of that, you have this intense attachment to get what that, because ignorance is positing, well done, there's Catherine, only 40 minutes late today. She told me how she has an old habit of being late. You belong in Mexico. I tell you, the worst, I mean, they all joke too. I never forget teaching in Mexico one day. They walked in just like Catherine did. She didn't kind of sneak in embarrassed. She just relaxed like it's the most normal thing in the world. I'm starting to talk at 8 o'clock and there's no one there. I thought, that's interesting. I'll start talking. But by the end of the day, it was full because they wandered in at 10 past, 20 past, half past, quarter to, 1 hour later, even 80 minutes later. That's what they do, they said. Well, Catherine would do well in Mexico. And she speaks Spanish anyway, so she's good. Okay, now I lost my plot. So, friend, so the three poisons, ignorance, and then on the basis of that ignorance mainly positing this concrete, real, inherent, separate, bereft, lonely, set in stone, poor little me. Then on the basis of this is this enormous emotional hunger, this attachment to get what that fantasy me wants. And then on the basis of attachment not getting what it wants, which is 1,000 times a day, the third one arises, which is called aversion. Volatile levels of it called anger, milder levels of it called annoyance, irritation, upset, or internalized levels of it called depression and despair. We all are they're so intimately connected, these three. And this is, of course, again, unique to the Buddha's view, the Buddha's definition of these. So now in relation to sentient beings, it's completely different. I mean, the same states of mind, but now we look at not cakes and whether you love or hate cakes or whatever, have aversion to cakes or whatever. Here it's sentient beings. So attachment is what we have for those who basically do what my attachment wants. That's why you're called friend. Your friend, I'm attached to you. The thing that defines in this framework, friend, enemy, stranger, is the presence of attachment. Then the person I'm attached to, who fulfills my attachment's needs, that's a friend. So they deserve my love. So they're the ones we have love for. They're the ones we wish to be happy. Now, this is the world. No one questions this. Of course I love my family. Of course I love my dog. Of course I love my boyfriend, we'll say. They're the only ones we want to be happy, which is called love. So attachment is one state of mind in the first lot, the negative ones, neurotic, I-based, ridiculous. In the second lot, love is a virtue. But they are utterly and totally and completely different. And this is the biggest shock and the hardest thing to see. It's so subtle. It's hard, impossibly hard to see, because we're so, even in our models of the mind, we assume they're the same. Because we know, I haven't even finished the definition of equanimity yet. I got wandered off. I haven't finished. I just started the sentence, but I'm doing a novel before I get to the conclusion. But I'll get there. Now, I'll say it first. Equanimity, once you've got it, is the heartfelt recognition that friend, enemy, and stranger are equal to each other from one point of view. From one point of view. Each of them wants to be happy. Each of them doesn't want suffering. So the more we hear these words, it sounds nice, but it informs the entire Buddha's path, and therefore the entire model of the mind in Buddhism. Wanting to be happy, is the first one. I want to be happy, so you better start not harming others, and watch and control your body, speech, and mind. That's the method for you to get happy. Now you know that for others, and now you want others to be happy, and now you're going to practice love. May you be happy. And the bodhisattva's one is, the brave one is, what can I do to make it happen? That's the brave attitude of the love of the bodhisattva path. Compassion is, may you not suffer. So when you know on the wisdom wing what suffering is and you're sick of it, may I not suffer is the first lot. May I not suffer. But that's what we feel embarrassed about. So if you say, I have compassion of others, not myself, it means you haven't done the work yet. You haven't understood the first stages of practice. You haven't understood karma and the Four Noble Truths. It's as simple as that. So I still didn't finish the definition. Oh, I did. Friend, enemy, stranger, this is equanimity, are equal to each other from the point of view of wanting happiness and not wanting suffering. That's the point. So how do you get it? Or put it that way, why haven't we got it this minute? Because we have attachment, aversion, and ignorance. That's why. So right now, I mean, we should be embarrassed actually to admit to this, but this is exactly the truth. We can see it in the world. Attachment is what we have for somebody. You know, we can be attached to an ugly husband. Look at the world, you know, who's always beating us up. We keep being attached and running back like a moth to a flame, isn't it? That's our trouble. But the typical attachment we have is, you know, you adore that dog, you adore that person, you adore. So that's the one we tend to think, I love that person. There's a nice feeling there. But that means our attachment is for that person. That means they appear divine to us. They appear beautiful to us because the attachment lenses are the main thing here. And therefore, I love you. Therefore, I want you to be happy. So as we'd say, our love at the moment has got strings attached. As Lama Zopa says, that the love we have at the moment is unstable because it's contingent upon attachment. And we don't even distinguish between them. Because look at our world. The person we love, may you be happy, is the person we're attached to. And if you stop being attached to a person, your love also goes out the window. You don't keep wanting every day that person to be happy while they beat you up. Well, people do, but see my point. They move into, once he gives you up for the younger version, he moves into the enemy category. Why? Because he stops doing what you want. That's what an enemy means. That's what aversion is. You have aversion for a person who doesn't do or doesn't do what you want, doesn't fulfill your attachment's needs. And it sounds brutal, but this is the analysis. So what's the third category? Stranger. Well, that's 99.9997 of the rest of the world. And what's stranger mean? Who gets the label stranger? It's a person who neither helps us nor harms us. So the consequence of that is, how do we feel? We couldn't care less. Or as Americans say, could care less. I never understand that one. We say you could not care less than that. And you say you could care less than that. What does it mean? Could care less than that sounds like the worst. It's so odd. We say, I'm meant to be an American, so maybe I should start saying it. You understand? Could care less, could not care less. And so it's really obvious that we should be embarrassed. So when you think of friend in this framework, it's people who have similar views to you, people who have similar political views, similar people like the same music. This is what we mean in our life. We're always trying to find people who think like us, like-minded people. That's what people mean by friends, you know? That's what we mean by friend. Person who thinks like me, looks like me, you know, is my people. They're my people, you know. That's how we think about attachment. And animals, donkeys and monkeys are the same, because attachment runs the show. So the moment the person stops fulfilling your needs, meaning attachment's needs, that's when we start to get aversion and annoyance and upset and irritated. Before you know it, you can't stand the sight of them. We know that. So we often say, oh, I love them, but I don't like them. It means that's usually your hubby and your wife, because you live together for 47 years or 92 years or whatever. That's what happens. It begins as attachment. You've got your attachment glasses on, your rose-colored specs. She looks divine. That's what we mean when we're in love. Because attachment runs the show in that case. And fortunately, you've got some love. You've got, at what mitigates, you've got some virtue. They're your saving grace. If anything happens in that relationship that's reasonable, it's not because of attachment. It's because, now you live together and you're more relaxed about it. And so you'll snore and you'll smell in the bed instead of the toilet because you think, now he loves me anyway, But most people get stuck and upset with each other and can't stand the sight because aversion arises, irritation, upset, annoyed, frustrated. Attachment's not getting what it wants. And if that continues to grow, that's what splits relationships up. Who's this ugly bloke in my bed now? Can't stand him. That's why it's changed. We just think he's changed. He might have. But when you're attached, you just couldn't see the same things. He has, they're all there, the same qualities. So when attachment runs the show, the person looks lovely and delicious. And so, of course, we call it love. I adore that person. I love that person. It's 99% attachment. It's not being rude, it's the analysis. But we can't tell the difference. Really, we can't. Then there's the person then that person eventually, as they keep not fulfilling your needs and you get more and more upset, more and more aversion, more and more anger, they will then gradually move out of the friend category and they'll be in the enemy category. Even if he's still in the same bed, that's the problem. That's aversion. There's distance, over there, ugly, doesn't fulfill my needs. That's it. That's why we have aversion. This is very shocking. We should be embarrassed to admit it, It's very fascinating. But stranger, in a sense, is the worst one. They could all drop dead as far as I'm concerned. They could all drop dead. Doesn't affect me. That's the world, So when we hear that what we're trying to do, starting with equanimity, this is going to gradually go through these 11 points and you culminate with this bodhicitta, it just seems like insane. We like to talk about it, but it freaks me out. I can't even cope with compassion and bodhicitta. It's just too intense when you really understand what it means, So why we all love the idea of love and compassion, I don't know. Are we communicating when I say that? Sounds weird, I know when I first heard the teachings, I thought, these people are out of their brains. What are they talking about? And then I heard His Holiness say, it really helped me. He said, you want to help others? Practice compassion. You want to help yourself? Practice compassion. So this is, again, back to this component, which is the wisdom wing, that virtuous states of mind and being less attached and less angry are beneficial to you. They're your methods for you to get happy. Don't be ashamed. Then you can help others properly, So equanimity is vital to get in order to go beyond that to finally culminate in bodhicitta. So it's gradual. There's equanimity, and then you this heartfelt recognition. This is tremendously powerful to get this first. Those three people, the one who's divine and does everything you want, the one who's ugly and mean, and they could be ugly and mean. I'm not saying it's just a view. They could be really ugly, mean people. But that person, and then the third one, the boring one, whom you can't even look at because they're so boring, because they're called stranger, because they neither help you nor harm you. In other words, these three poisons completely inform our view of the universe. It's so clear. There's no category left over. There's no fourth category of people. This is why these three poisons are so clear in the analysis. It's not just random states of mind. These are evident. You won't find a person who is either a friend, enemy, or stranger. That's it. That's it. It's the three categories. There's no fourth category of sentient beings. This is profound. And they're informed by attachment, aversion, and ignorance, Ignorance here, a grosser level of ignorance, one of kind of just a generalized kind of indifference, uncaring. That kind of, a characteristic of ignorance. Couldn't care. Not So we don't, and even that's why the idea is you start to think you're trying to grow compassion for everybody. It just seems overwhelming. We can't see the road. We can't see the door. We can't see the roadway to that. We can't see the path. What do you mean have love for everybody? We've got to have a basis for this. That's why we have to understand the wisdom wing. Paul Rinpoche, when he talks about the more advanced stages of the practices to even just get bodhicitta, forget about the advanced stages of the perfections, which is the next level. He says we need to be a suitable vessel. Suitable vessel is a person who's done the wisdom wing, who understands attachment and aversion and has given up that because they are sick of suffering for themselves. That's a suitable vessel. You know, when he talks about the levels of love and compassion that you're trying to cultivate on the later stages of these 11, equanimity is already intense. It's a starting point. And why is it a starting point? Because of this. Because right now, what informs my wish that you are happy, that is to say, what informs my loving you, because that's the definition of love. What informs my wish that you be happy now is completely attachment, because it's saying as long as you do what my attachment wants. It sounds brutal, but we have to do the analysis. So therefore it's contingent. My love is like if you write a contract when you get married, and you're basically doing that, you know, as long as you keep doing what I want, I'm prepared to be your wife. But you start doing what I don't want, you're out, mate. That's what happens, isn't it? So it's completely contingent on this attachment. The love we have right now. So let's just don't go any further right now. So if I love Fred, I want Fred to be happy. When I'm attached to him, this is so easy, you know, because he appears divine to you. All your energies and your senses are awakened, you're heightened. It's the easiest. You'd give your life for this person when you've got attachment, because it brings a lot of good feelings, you know, so that it's easy to say, I love you. I love you. But and as long as Fred keeps fulfilling my needs, and that, you know, that's okay. It means as long as he keeps being a nice person to me, then will continue to want him to be happy. We can see this, you know. But what happens if he doesn't? Well, he goes into the enemy category. And then when I was attached to him, and this is the point about these delusions, attachment, okay, the key central function of all the neurotic states of mind, all the afflictions, all the misconceptions, all the delusions, all these words, the key function is they exaggerate certain characteristics of the object of the attachment. So as a person, the attachment is the part of your mind that causes them to appear divine to you. You've got to understand that. The reason they appear divine to you is not because you have the virtue of love. When you have the virtue of love really growing and not much attachment, it's true, they will all appear nice to you because you've really practiced. But without practice, people appear divine to you because you've got attachment, you know. So your baby, and this sounds very shocking to us. You know, if you get the mother of a baby, you know, you show a mother of a baby a photo of 1,000 babies, they'll see theirs in 1 millisecond. They won't have a problem finding them. They'll like have a halo around them. They'll know there's my baby, and the most beautiful of all, you know. Why? Is because of attachment. This sounds very brutal. We talk about mother love being something more. It just means intense, strong attachment. I mean, the sentient being, excuse me, ran like a magnet into your womb. I mean, I can't think of anything more intense than that. You know, to have a person grow themselves inside your body, that's pretty intense. So that's why if you think about it, it's handy that your mother has attachment for you. My mother had enormous attachment for all her children, her 7 of us, but I'm glad she had attachment for me because she would have killed me otherwise. Do you understand me? But now this is a really good point. Please listen to this one. This is very intense, but it's so understandable. We hear about mothers who are, we could put it in Buddhist terms, who don't have much attachment for their children, right? And I mean attachment in the Buddhist sense, not in the attachment in the Western sense of being close, kind of connected, attached to their family. I mean this view that exaggerates the qualities. So we know some mothers don't much like their babies, and we're so shocked by that, like they're monsters. That's just due to karma, you know. So this is my point now. If you've got lots of attachment for that baby, then it's easy to take care of them. It's easier to get up at 3 in the morning and change their smelly diapers and things because you have so much attachment for them. You've got to recognize that. You're a human being. You're not a bodhisattva yet. Don't think, oh, I've got such love and compassion. You haven't. The attachment and the karmic connection between you and that child, even though it's exhausting, you will do it and you know it's your job. The attachment is huge in that. It's just how we are. It's not criticism, you see. It's just how we are as sentient beings. It's just how we are. We have to see it. But if you don't have much attachment, can you imagine not liking a particular person, in fact, having aversion for them and deciding to marry them and act like you adore them? That's like mental illness. That's like nightmare for us. Well, bodhisattvas would do that with a blink of an eye because they don't distinguish, because there's no attachment. That's why it's easy for us when the attachment is being fulfilled, when the baby behaves nicely. But if your baby cries 24 hours a day, I'm sorry, that's why mothers kill their babies. Because it's too exhausting, because your aversion is being attacked every day. Your attachment is not getting what it wants, and you're completely exhausted, overwhelmed, and you want to die, because it's too intense. But if you've got buckets of love, you'll be okay. That's our saving grace. It's the love, it's the empathy, the genuine affection and love that you have. That's our saving grace. That's what causes you happiness. Are we communicating here? Same in your relationship, with your hubby or something. So what we're trying to get with equanimity is this. At the moment, what informs my wish you be happy and my wish you don't suffer, that is to say love and compassion, what informs that at the moment is that you fulfill my needs. So what we're trying to do, so that I want you to be happy, and then in parentheses, as long as you make me happy. I want you to not suffer as long as you do what I want. That's just absolutely implicit, Now, what we're trying to see here is we're trying to step out of that. We're trying to get ourselves step out of that equation. And even if we're talking, we do this. So visualize in front of you to the left like a beloved, a person you have a lot of attachment for and whom you adore in front of you. In the middle, in the front, the person you don't like. Could be a person at work, could be your mum, could be a politician, someone who annoys you, upsets you, irritates you. Or the best one is someone who's hurt you. One who gave you up for a younger version, that one. Then the stranger is the boring one. You can't even look over there. They're too boring. Who's that? Couldn't care. Enemy, friend, enemy, stranger. We can see that. So the simplest example I always use, like let's say my boyfriend's called Herb. Let's say Herb. I always like this example. Let's say Herb is a stranger. Andre's mate Herb, okay? And Andre chats to me and says, poor Herb, gets these migraines. And I don't know who he is. He's a bloke who lives down at number 7, I don't know who he is. Oh, really? Does he? I'm so sorry. But it lasts about 1 minute. My empathy lasts about 1 minute because he's a stranger. Oh my God, I must go and help Herb. Please, what's his address? I'll go and help him. I can help him. Blah, blah, blah. Don't say that. Oh, the poor guy. Oh, yeah, I know about migraines. And the next minute you forget all about Herb because he's a stranger. It doesn't energize us. Okay, for a moment these days, because the whole world is so naked to us through all the news and our iPads and our social media, we do have a lot of empathy. We hear about this weird country, we don't even know how to say their name, and we see their earthquake, and we read about it, but within 3 minutes, we're eating breakfast again. And it's not being rude, it's just how we are, I mean, as soon as I read about, or even, that you read about, like I'm Australian, I'm American, I'm English, whatever, but I read about Australia. Oh, it's my country. I'll read about it, it's my country. I get the New York Times, and one of their sections is the different countries. So I'll go to Australia. I click on that one and read the Australian news. All about that what is that? What was that one, Robbie? The Wellington what? That lady is famous in Australia for some reason, this case of this woman who fed them poisoned food. And there's been, for some reason, insanely popular in Australia. Anyway, but I read about Australia because it's my country. It's my people. They're my people. That's how I think. You think like that. So there's Herb, and he's a stranger. I don't know the man, which means he's neither harmed nor helped me. There's no relationship. We get that. He's distant. I don't see him. Oh, who's that Herb? Is that Herb? No, that's not Herb. That's someone else. Because you can't distinguish. You're not homing in on him because he's a stranger. That's what we just think is normal. Of course, he's normal. Because he's not helped you or harmed you. Now, let's say I meet Herb. Andre introduces me to him. We fall in love and he moves me into number 6. Now he's moved very quickly. He's packed his bags and gone from stranger to friend, has he not? And now look what Herb looks like. Now he's like this brand new person. Oh, and look at Robina. She's so kind. She spends all her money on helping Herb. She's so kind to him. She's so compassionate. She's up at night. She takes him to doctors. Robina's so loving, so compassionate. Excuse me. The point about equanimity is this. This is the point about equanimity. Ask Herb, when he's my stranger, tell us about your headaches. And he will tell you they're unbearable. He will tell you he only wants to stop suffering. He will tell you that. And you know from Herb's side it's true. Now Herb suddenly is moving into, I'm into his house and he's my beloved now. Now you ask Herb, you don't know anything about me. You ask Herb how your headaches. He's not going to give a different story. They're going to be still terrible headaches. I'll tell you how unbearable it is. And now, because but for me, he's labeled a friend now. So I can see it because I've got a vested interest. I know it's brutal, but this is just how it is. Because of attachment, I have this vested interest in loving Herb, wanting Herb not to suffer, and sacrificing my life for him. I know it sounds brutal, but we have to do the analysis. This is normal behavior. And now when Herb cheats on me and he throws me out of number 6, now where does he go? He packs his bags and he's in the enemy category. And now I think, oh, I hope he suffers from his migraines. But when you ask Herb, when he's got my label enemy on him, you ask him about his headaches, he will answer in exactly the same way. So all I'm saying is that the friend only wants to be happy and doesn't want suffering. The enemy only wants to be happy, doesn't want suffering. The stranger only wants happy, doesn't to be suffering. So the point here is that the labels are completely imposed by our neurotic minds. They have no basis in reality. That's the trouble. That's the problem. And the whole world appears to us like this. They're divided into boring people, ugly ones, and nice ones. And the trouble is, of course, we believe these are objective truths. Like boringness is kind of coursing in his veins along with his blood, you know. And suddenly, divineness is coursing in his veins overnight. And now suddenly, ugliness is coursing in his veins. I mean, we ought to be embarrassed at how irrational we are. Do you hear my point? It's completely hysterically irrational. And it proves how utterly self-centered we are. We define the whole universe in terms of whether they satisfy my needs or not. It sounds brutal, I understand, but this is the analysis of what Buddha means by a negative state of mind and a positive state of mind. So what we're trying to do here by getting equanimity is recognize this and gradually grow our wish that everybody be happy, and it's no longer contingent upon when they make me happy. That's the point. We want everybody, and the difference is this one: loving her because he makes me happy. But now I want to love her because he wants to be happy. That's the radical difference. So that's your mum when you go off and get your tattoos and marry a dog or something, you know, these days people do anything. Whatever makes you happy, darling, that's love, you know. Do you understand? Whatever makes you happy, that's what love is. Whereas if it's love based on attachment, we know what that's like. You squeeze that person, you demand they do what you want, and then, you know, your love is for sale. If you do what I want, I'll keep loving you. That's how most of us are, you know. We know that. But the difference here is we have to distinguish between these. It's not just some vague distinction. It's a massive distinction. The characteristics of a negative state of mind and the characteristics of a virtuous one. They're huge, you know. So eventually, as you lessen attachment and you start to grow equanimity, love, compassion, great compassion. The point is your delusions are diminishing, and your virtues are growing and growing and growing. And that's what informs now your view of others. And they will all appear beautiful to you, even the maniacs, even the psychopaths, even the pedophiles. You'll have love and compassion for them. And this is the reason why, because you know they want it, and even more now, because you understand karma, because they are harming themselves. That's the basis for having compassion for harmers, you know, which is karma. So if you don't understand karma properly, you can't have that level of compassion. Not possible. Impossible. They say the bodhisattvas have such compassion for all of us because we don't understand cause and effect. Which means we all create our own suffering and create our own happiness, you know. That even if we're all wandering around the world going crazy, looking for happiness, looking to stop suffering, blaming the husband, blaming the politicians, blaming the country, blaming the world, all the time doing that, it's that we're these demented people looking in the wrong direction. We're suffering because of past karma and our delusions. Yes, the outside world plays a role. But like I said, the best way to see the outside world is they're merely catalysts. The dog, the nice cup, the hubby, Herb, they're catalysts. The ugly politicians, the nice husband, they are merely catalysts that trigger something in me. That's their job. From that perspective, then it can be more clear, you know. So the only way to see that enemy, friend, and stranger are equal in wishing to be happy and not suffer is to understand your own mind and understand attachment and the virtues and the delusions. And that's in the second scope. That's in the wisdom wing. You can't otherwise. It's not possible. Not possible, I tell you. Then you try to practice. So how would you practice equanimity every day? Let's say it's for your little grandkid. So you adore your grand. I mean, my sisters now all got, some of them are great grandmothers already because we're all old. So they'll talk about the very particular relationship. Because what's shocking to me is that these children, my sister's children, are now themselves great grandmothers. You know, I think, oh wow, look at that, right? What am I saying? I'm confused. What's a grandchild? Oh yeah, that's right. So some of them have many, and they all of them who are now grandmothers themselves. My sister's children are now grandmothers themselves. You know, they're like 40 because I got married young. They all talk about the special relationship of a grandmother. I think that's true with grandparents. Everyone says that. It's a very unique relationship with a child, as I heard. Anyway, they adore being grandparents. So you've got this cute grandchild. You adore your grandchild. You just adore every minute, you know. And there she is like a little angel. And she's playing with this ugly, smelly kid who picks his nose and is mean. And he might be mean. I'm not saying he's not mean. He might be a mean little boy. So this is where you practice equanimity. You automatically want your little beloved to be happy, and you automatically kind of protect her from this mean little, you know, nose picker. But you stop. Shut up, Robina. And okay, you got to watch your eye. He might be crazy. Be careful. But just check up, Robina. Give it a break. Check now. Think about this. She, in her little heart right now, only wants to be happy. He, in his little heart now, only wants to be happy. And when as soon as you think that about the little kid, suddenly you see a human being there, not just an object of aversion. Don't understand me? Straight away you do that. Straight away you do that. Because the way the person appears to you is informed by what's in your mind. You think he wants to be happy just like my daughter, just like my beloved. He's driven by the same feeling. That's what it means. He's driven by the wish to be happy and not suffer. Straight away, there's a bit of humanity there. That's how you're practicing. Then we're not discussing getting love and compassion here. That comes 3-4 steps on. This is the basis. This is the starting point. The starting point, the recognition they want to be happy and don't want suffering, because that now is the shift in your logic for why you want someone to be happy and not suffer, not based on attachment, but now based on the fact that they want it. That's the shift. That's the shift that equanimity brings. It's huge, you know. Then you can start to grow, move through the steps, you know. Any questions about that? Is it clear? Yeah.
It sounds impossible, equanimity,
That's right. That's true, isn't it? I agree with you.
because from what I hear, if we perceive everyone,
If we what?
every being,
If we what?
if we see everyone
As?
equal or
No, be more precise. Equal in what way? You've got to narrow it down. Don't exaggerate. We're not equal in what way, am I just saying? Equal in what way?
In that they want to be happy and
Okay,
not
good.
to
We don't want to
suffer.
suffer.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to prove, the logic of that. The logic of that. We're not, okay, I'm going to preempt you. We're not, our trouble is, as soon as we hear that that smelly kid wants to be happy, the first thing we say is, what do you mean? They don't deserve it. That's so we don't even go there. We're not discussing that at all. We're looking at the bare bones fact that everybody's driven by that wish. Don't go further yet. So why is that difficult? It's difficult, of course, but can you hear it logically? Go on.
So what I'm hearing is to try to have love and compassion.
No. Okay, this is my point. We're talking about, there's a big thing here, but what we're doing here now is being very clinical and going literally step by step by step. We are only first talking about the first step. The love and compassion will come slowly. The techniques are about that. These are very specific techniques. This is like technical. This is the first one. We're not discussing yet having love and compassion for them, but that's way ahead. We're discussing this bare bones recognition that the nice ones and the ugly ones and the boring ones are driven equally by the wish to be happy and not suffer. That's all we're talking about. Don't go further. Can you hear my point? When we talk about these virtuous ones, we do these meditations, equanimity, we kind of put all this stuff in a big lump, but these are stages of development. They're technical stages of development. Are you hearing me?
Yeah.
But can you hear it logically how it's true?
It
That's
makes,
all that matters.
yeah.
That's the point here. Because it's only once we've got that clear and then try to practice that every day that we can start to move into the next level and start to use other logical analysis. Because all the techniques, these meditations are using logical analysis to argue with ego's berserk misconceptions. They're not just, when we think about love and compassion, we think it's about gooey feelings. That's so rubbish, you know. This is clinical, using logic, clear thinking and logic, because delusions are irrational and ridiculous. So these meditations demand a lot of clarity each step of the way, and then practicing putting your money where your mouth is throughout the day. Are we communicating? Good.
Yeah. I was thinking about the example that you gave of Herb, what's his name?
Herb.
And his headaches, right?
Yeah.
If I don't know him, and I'm not going to rush to help. If I see my daughter with the same level of suffering, then I want to help.
That's right.
But if my perception, and well, again, I'm going to love. And,
so what's the point about that?
so
what
I'm trying to say is there are unlimited beings, but limited energy.
Oh, that's because we're...
love.
But honey, why have we got limited? Because we've got attachment, aversion and ignorance. That's the whole point here. We're discussing the bodhisattva path. It's ridiculous. Don't worry about it. But that's normal. That's what Buddha's telling us. Because we're limited by what? Attachment, aversion, and ignorance. That's the assumption here. We're looking at how to go beyond those. Of course, it's a long time off for us. We've got to start somewhere. All we're saying is Buddha's saying it's possible. And this is the logic to use to get there. So this is why it's so powerful to read or think about these people who are like this, when you see living examples of them. So, you know, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, some of you might know him. He happens to be one of my main teachers. And they asked me, after he died a couple of years ago, they asked me to write his obituary. So I wrote it. It's eulogy, you know, it's quite hard because, you know, I know about Lama Zopa or blah, 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 but when I started talking to people and trying to write objectively in a simple way about his qualities, it was so clear that he had no attachment, no aversion, and no ego grasping. So that's impossible for us to imagine. We can say it, but when you see the behavior up close and hear the stories up close, it seems impossible, but that's what we're talking here. So when you're at that level, he, for example, is Venerable Roger, who's been his attendant for since 1986, okay? Like when I started talking to Venerable Roger about it, because I didn't know how to write it. It's very difficult. So I started asking him. And when he first had the job of being his attendant, he didn't know what his job was. He didn't know what the job description was, you know. So he thought, I'll take my lead from Lama Zopa. He will help me know what my job is, you know, what time he goes to bed, what time he wants his meals, and the normal things that a person who is an assistant would learn. You get to know what the boss needs. You understand? I'm just talking ordinary terms. They want this, they like their coffee this way, they go to bed this time, they do this, they do that. You learn to know what their needs are, and you're a good assistant if you do that. Well, he said Lama Zopa didn't have any needs. He kept waiting for the signs, you know, but he never slept. When he sat on his bed, he sat cross-legged. He never stretched his legs out. He never slept. He was whatever. He never, ever asked anything for himself. If you didn't give him a cup of tea, he wouldn't have a cup of tea. If you didn't give him lunch, he wouldn't take lunch. People would, if someone knocked on his door, like even people coming through the window, I heard about in Kopan, people, you know, girls falling in love with him, knocking on his window and climbing in the window at 3 a.m, he would welcome them as if it's the most normal thing on the planet. Come on in. He's having his lunch. If you walked in, he'd welcome you. He never seemed to show. Using these words, he didn't show ever that he had needs that weren't involved in helping other people. Not you go around like a drama queen. Oh, what can I do for you? Or let me heal your headache. No. But whatever came to him, he'd deal with that. He never slept. So the first couple of years, you know, Venerable Roger said, it's like he had no reference point. So he tried to do whatever Rinpoche needed, which means if you had to never sleep yourself. He'd do teachings and he'd have his lunch at midnight. He'd be all night working, writing letters to people. Any given point, he had like a folder of 2,000 letters. Never showed any anxiety. When we are slightly overworked, we have mental breakdowns, anxiety about not getting our jobs done. He's got a folder of 2,000 letters, people needing help. And he might spend, you know, when I did a book, Rinpoche asked me to put together all his letters to prisoners. And one guy got a letter of 40 typed pages. So it must have taken him weeks just to answer that one guy. For whatever reason, Rinpoche thought that was beneficial. Gave him his total, so everything he did, it was, if you're there, you were the person who totally existed for him, and he would serve your needs right there. And he never seemed to be disturbed. Nothing would ever disturb his mind. He never went up, or he never went down. He never expressed needs. In our culture, that's mental illness. So, of course, you can't be that way overnight, dear, but these techniques are to help us get there. That's the point. You see my point? It's long term. You've got to understand it. So then he had his stroke. 2011, I remember I was in Australia when he had it. We're in the centre there. And then Venerable Roger took him to the hospital and he started videoing him. He videoed a message back from Rinpoche. And all I know is when we saw this video, you know, because he'd had a stroke and he's on these drugs, he looked like he was all bloated and kind of, he was slurring his words, and he was laughing. He was laughing. Looked like a drunk sailor, you know. And he was laughing. The whole time in the hospital, Venerable Roger was there, other monks were there taking his entourage, all working with him, staying in the hospital, this small hospital near this town called Bendigo, out of Melbourne. And initially, they didn't understand. They thought he was completely senile because he never showed upset. He never asked a single question about anything about his health. They thought he was mentally ill or backward, senile, like didn't have anything. But they realized that's what it's like. It seems hard to imagine this. And even when I was saying it, I think, come on, give me a break. But this is the evidence, the behavior of a person who has done this path, who doesn't have attachment, doesn't have anger, doesn't have ignorance or any of the delusions, and of course has realized emptiness and has full-blown bodhicitta, which means every living being is the most important thing for him. I mean, way to go, please, one step at a time. Are we communicating? I mean, in our culture, that is like crazy person. They're not normal. That's not normal. So that's why you have to understand it. Intellectually understand theoretically what it means. Do the wisdom wing, do the Four Noble Truths, understand the mind. Look at what Buddha means by delusion. Look what he means by virtue. So just wishy-washy, blur, you know. Clear, technical, step-by-step logic. I'm not joking. And if you're inspired, want to do it, then go one baby step at a time. Long way to go, but it's okay. Start where we are, each step of the way, you know. Any questions? Yeah. Good. Are we communicating? What's your name? That man. What's his name? This man. What's your name? Andres. So are we communicating, Andres? Thank you, John. Yeah.
In that split second, when, as you say, faster than Google, our mind wants to go to, oh, this guy, whatever he did, he bumped into me, whatever he did.
That's right.
He deserves whatever he gets.
That's right.
What can we do in that split second?
I understand, darling. That's a bit like asking if I'm driving 100 miles an hour on the freeway with 6 lanes of traffic and something starts to go wrong, but you don't understand mechanics, or you don't understand very well how to drive a car. No, it's better. So not forget mechanics. You're not a very good driver. So clearly the answer has to be dependent upon how many driving skills you've got. And it's exactly the same here, sweetheart. It's exactly the same, which is why, in a sense, that's too late to say what'll I do. So we've got to learn from that and go back to basics and sit on our cushion and do all the work one step at a time. And then you'll be more qualified when the drama comes, because you'll be catching your mind and you'll already be stable. So, but you just, if you're trying to practice equanimity, so what was the example? Somebody not doing what you want, the traffic or the person. This is the point. This is what we get from practicing a technique. Any kind of meditation is forcing us to sit with ourselves, whether it's a visualization or mantra, it doesn't matter. But you're forcing, not just to be engaged in the outside world, you're forcing yourself to engage with yourself, which is really developing the habit to notice what's happening here, not just to notice what's happening there. That's the skill we have to learn. And then that's informed by then the understanding of what you're seeing, which is by learning the mind. You see my point? So the more you do that, the more qualified you are when you catch it. You recognize, oh, there's aversion. You just notice you have to see what the mind is. Is it attachment or aversion? You have to notice attachment or aversion are too basic, absolutely fundamental, that inform all the others. So the attachment, if it's attachment there, you go, oh, that's that lovely. You go towards it. If it's aversion, you go, ugh. So just catch it. So if it's aversion, just say, oh, that's aversion, honey, instead of look at him. Before you go to there, say it's aversion. That's it. Catch it. That's it. And then and all the lamas say in different ways, but you know, the way Lama Zopa puts it, these delusions, which are so ingrained in us, we should be very humble with ourselves because they're, you know, very ancient, totally programmed, totally automatic, totally second nature, totally instinct. That's what instinct means. You've done it that often. It's just who you are. Then we should. Then you know, as soon as you can catch it, and you have to see what it is, and then, as Rinpoche says, the way the world right now, the way the world appears back to us is true. And they say it in the text, is in the aspect of whatever's in the mind. Well, like they say, this lovely example, Lama Yeshe talks about it in his Mahamudra teachings. The mind's like a mirror. This is really helpful. Our mind is a mirror, meaning everything that appears to us is reflecting in our mirror. So if our mirror's dirty with anger, of course we know how things will look. If our mirror is pure with love and compassion and equanimity, even though you see a monster doing a monstrous thing, you see it very differently because you're informed by love and compassion and kindness. Do you see my point? I think we understand this. So we just practice. The more we can catch our mind, that's why the more we have concentration, the more we can catch our mind. And then the more we study the Dharma and study, because it's not enough just to have the awareness. This is the biggest problem, I think, in our culture about mindfulness, meditation. Sort of like, I use the analogy, it's like you're being mindful of your garden. You've got a big garden out there and you want to be mindful of it, so you concentrate. So you could get such good concentration of focusing on your garden that you could even replicate a picture of your garden because you're so clear. You get my point here? But what good is that finally if you don't know how to name what you're seeing? It means you don't know, you see the weeds and the herbs and the flowers, but you don't know how to distinguish between them. So mindfulness or concentration is the first step, but you've got to inform that with the wisdom of botany, that with your clarity, oh, now there's a herb. I thought that was one of the weeds, but now you can see the difference. That's what you do in your mind. So this concentration is the first step. It's a skill. Then develop the habit to look here, not just look there. And then to know how to interpret what's there, which doesn't come, you can look at those herbs and those flowers till the cows come home. They will never, I'm a herb, I'm a weed. No, you got to learn it. So you got to know what attachment is, and know what anger is, and know what jealousy is. And they've all got their own little function. You understand? That's what to do.
It just happens so quickly.
So what's your point?
Just
Therefore,
try to catch it as soon as we can. Or go back and analyze.
but can you see the process? The more you concentrate, the more you get this, learn about the mind and know how to interpret what you're seeing, then that's what gives you the skill to do it better and better. Of course, that's the point. But it's really quite advanced what we're talking about. That's the skill. Do our best. And then afterwards, when it's too late, learn from it. Do analysis later, That's a really good one. Of course it is. Exactly. Someone else, yeah. Yeah. Nobody? Somebody? No? No, I thought, okay.
Anyone online?
So the other one I want to talk about, hello, Wendy. Good night. So the other one the one I want to talk about here is in the same discussion, is to, people have compassion, okay? So let's just talk about people who work in the medical world, where you help, people are moved by the thought to want to help people. That's incredible. I think that's so moving. It's amazing. You do a job so you can help people. That means there's compassion. Help people. So, okay, you're going to ask, well, what kind of people do you help? Well, people who are suffering. So usually in our world, that means sick people, poor people, homeless people, imprisoned people. Do you understand me? I'm not being rude now. It's true, they are suffering. But they're usually the ones we're immediately drawn to help, because that suffering is evident. This is the suffering of suffering. But the subtler one is demanding of you, Buddha's a view of the mind, according to Buddha, his analysis, which means you have to understand attachment. So there you are, let's say someone helping other people, sick people, let's say. And you have compassion, you see the suffering and you want to help them, and you learn that, you learn your skills, you've got some wisdom, you learn the skills, how to help. So that's where you can clearly see having compassion for a sick person is not enough. If you can't even put a Band-Aid on, what good is compassion? You can't do anything. You're useless. That means your hands are tied. You can't do anything. You've got to have some wisdom, which means skill, techniques, But here's now the confusion about when we mix aversion and depression and compassion. So if you helping people, I will think about COVID. And I heard about stories about people in the profession who killed themselves out of despair, because the suffering was overwhelming. So the thing is this, I think. When we have compassion, but we haven't recognized that it's limited by, and that was your point, it's limited by our attachment. So you can have compassion, like I said, for your child, and you see her child suffering, but if they continue to scream all day and behave badly all day, it really is exhausting. But the point is, whether it's a sick person or your child, why you suffer. Okay, I'll go back to the sick person. We think when we see suffering, that's why we suffer. Many people is overwhelmed by the suffering of the world. You can't cope. So when we think it's because we've got compassion. Are you communicating with me? We think we suffer because other people suffer. No, we do not suffer from having a compassion. And this again is the clear thing about studying the Buddhist view of the mind. When we realize the neurotic states of mind, attachment, anger, all the others, they are the cause of suffering within me. And the virtues, love, compassion, if you can try and isolate them, they cannot cause suffering. It is impossible to suffer because you have compassion. This is the Buddhist analysis, because in our world, we mix them all together. But the compassion we have now is dragged down by and polluted by attachment. So our attachment is why we suffer when we see suffering. So then we say, then we have to look at why. Well, because of this. Attachment, you can say, is attachment to things, attachment to cake, attachment to lovely things, attachment to nice sounds, attachment to comfort, you know. But really another way of putting attachment is that attachment is this fragile part of us, fragile emotional hunger that only wants everything to be lovely. Can you hear that? Attachment wants everything to be nice. So, of course, there you are, and all this suffering in the world, and these people dying, and nightmares, and troubles, and war zones. It is the worst. It is the most appalling thing you've ever seen. So attachment, being brutal, but this is the analysis, your attachment is completely berserk. It's getting everything it doesn't want. So what's the response when attachment doesn't get what it wants? Is the bare bones state of mind called aversion. Go away. I can't cope. So that will become either anger, you go become a political activist and you kill everybody, or you go to war, or it becomes profound depression. So we suffer not because of compassion, we suffer because of attachment and aversion. Can you hear that? You've got to see the difference. If you want to be a Buddhist, you have to see this difference. This is not Jung or Freud or somebody else. This is Buddha's deal. Delusions are what make you suffer. The virtues can't make you suffer. That's a revelation when you can see it, you know. So we've got to recognize our limitation. Because why we suffer, why we have anxiety, why we have mental breakdowns, why we get depressed, why we get jealous, is because of attachment. And we should have compassion for ourselves when we understand this, not, oh, I'm a bad person. That's how we hear it, you know. It's just Buddha's analysis of why we suffer. That's it. We should be weeping in kindness towards ourselves. Join the universe, people. This is how we all are. So slowly do what we can according to our capacity. It's good to have examples like Mama Zopa, shows you what you can become. It's good to go watch Roger Federer every now and again, except he's all retired now. So these new people, a bloke called Sinner and a bloke called, it's a Spanish one, isn't there? Djokovic just lost at Wimbledon to this new lot. Sinner, he's called. Another bloke, what's the other one, the Spanish name? Alcatraz, not Alcatraz, somebody. Federer's gone now. So anyway, are we communicating here, people? So we've got to know our minds. We've got to distinguish, know the theory first. If you don't know botany, how can you distinguish between weeds and herbs? I don't care how much mindfulness you've got. I was walking with one of my nephews in Australia. Actually, it was at a teacher centre where Lama Zopa had the stroke. And it's a very dry country there, very flat and dry, you know, bushy, sort of low-grown bush and things. And he's a horticulturist or something. Means he knows growing things. I don't know growing things, okay? I can tell you about a gum tree and maybe a rose, but don't get too complicated. And there's this dry, boring, and we're walking from the center to the monastery there. We're walking, it's very kind of leafy and dry, and underneath it's all kind of crackly and sort of funny, sparse-looking growing things. It looks boring to me. And he goes, oh, look at that little thing over there. And he picked up this green thing. Oh, you can delicious taste it, Robina. And he's so excited. I couldn't see anything because I didn't know botany. You understand my point? That's how we are with our bloody minds. This vague kind of what I'm feeling, and then you know, it's just we know nothing. This is the wisdom wing, people. Put yourself first. Get happy first. Now you'll be eager beaver to help other people because you know what's going on. So compassion it is true. Literally, we're ordinary, as he said. Our compassion is limited by the presence of our attachment and aversion. That's why the wisdom has to come first. You can't wait. No, so you don't wait till you get perfect wisdom first. You go gradually, you know, gradually. So just do quickly the 9 little things before we get to the 6 perfections tomorrow. So then there's techniques, 11 of them, I forget. Doesn't matter, I'll go a few. But they're incremental, very precise. So equanimity is first. And once you've made this shift, I now realize that everyone is equal in wanting to be happy and not suffer. So now you're shifting to that. Then the next little bit of logic in these series of techniques to try and, you know, use to shift your mind is this hilarious one of how everybody's been your mum. So you just need your calculator for this one, I think. So the saying goes that your mind is beginningless, so you've had beginningless lifetimes. And everybody else's mind is beginningless, and they've had beginningless lifetimes. So it seems to be following logically and even mathematically that you bumped into each other countless times in countless past lives. And the idea here is to use the example of a person called a mother, who the only reason they use the concept of everyone's been your mother is because she's an example of a person who's been kind to you. So, of course, us in our culture think it's the opposite, you know. Like, what do you mean my mother's kind, you know? So Dalai Lama said, don't worry, just use anyone who's nurtured you, you know. The idea is just to use someone who's been kind. So then you think everybody's been your mother, everyone's been kind. So you're shifting your mind, you're expanding your mind here a little bit. The world, there's huge numbers of beings, you know. The next little one is, the third one, is the mother's kind. And let's look at this one. This freaks us out. But let's even look what we mean by kind. I think right now, quite frankly, when we say, oh, Herb is so kind, you know, what we mean is he's doing what my attachment wants. He could be a psychopath. I don't care. He's doing what I want. Oh, he's so kind. I mean, it's so self-centered, our view of kindness. It's all about me. Do you understand me? I mean, occasionally we do meet people who seem to have a kind nature, you know, sweet voices. Like Joya, who drove me? Joya, where is she? She has this sweet nature, this sweet voice. You'd say Joy's got a kind nature. People would not say that about me, this loud shouting person, you know. She's a kind. That we understand that, you know. We understand that. But that's not the definition of kind here. I'm sorry. The definition of kind here is the fact that she does anything to help you. Your mother might be a total narcissist, as we like to call. She might be self-centered. She might be full of attachment. It's true. She might be. Just guess what? But for some reason in our world, because we think our mother makes us, we've got this deep assumption. Our attachment has this assumption that if she's making me, she'd better be a saint. So we're always devastated that our mother's less than a saint. It's like the worst insult in the planet. How dare my mother be less than perfect, you know? It's such a bizarre idea. So the kindness here more means that she's done things to help me. That's very different, you know. So everybody can see this. And so many of my Buddhist friends who first couldn't stand their mothers, and their mothers are attached and are needy, yes, that's fine, that's true. But by just learning to see this and remember, I mean, something, you know, or even a person, it could be your boyfriend, could be your husband, could be your mother. To shift it from them kind because they're doing what I want, but kind the fact they did anything at all. So then how you remember, it's a really good exercise. I think it's a good exercise, especially if it's your mum and you don't like her or she's been mean and nasty. You just try and think freshly. Go back to the very beginning of when you were born and think of different things your mother has done that have helped you. She might be mean, I agree, but she still, you know, she gave birth. She, you know, wiped your dirty little bottom. She cleaned your little, you know, she taught you how to dress. She fed you. So that even though she's neurotic, she did those things. So then you remember, when you remember those actions she did from her capacity, then you think that's kindness. Whether you see my point? It's not just based on me all the time. It's very, very different. So many people, like a friend of mine recently, you know, her mother got old and cancer and she couldn't stand her mother. And she literally changed her interpretation of her mother, you know. when we see that our views are what inform the way we see somebody, especially if they've been mean to us, we paint the whole of that person with that brush. But you just change your thoughts and you start looking fresh. Make a list of all the good qualities, a list of the good things they've done, and you'll find a big fat list, I promise. I even think of a mother who gives her baby away. The one reason on the planet that anybody thinks their mother, no way is their mother kind if they threw you out after birth. Well, I'm sorry, you have the best reason to think your mother's kind. She didn't abort you. Okay, she didn't abort you. One of the people I know, one person I know at the same time as me, when in the 60s, I had an abortion. My sister had an abortion. And this other person, she did not want an abortion. Come on, have an abortion. We say, have an abortion. No, I don't want an abortion. She gave birth to the child, risk of losing her boyfriend. Then she gave the baby away. And then she had this terrible pain of loss of this lost baby. So she found them in the 80s. And the kid didn't like her. She still resented her for giving her away. But she never thought once that she didn't kill me. Do you understand me? If someone saves your life under a bus, you'll never forget them as long as you live. Well, your mother didn't abort you. You understand me? It's a different way of seeing kind. There's a second meditation in the number 3 one. So 3A is your mother's kind, but this other one is more powerful in a way. And first, initially, it's ridiculous that everybody's kind to you. This is based on dependent arising. And this is the way to say it, we can see logically that since the time of your conception in your mother's womb, every tiny thing that has facilitated your life is the handiwork of sentient beings. You can't argue with that. You just can't. But we never think it for 1 second because we're based on attachment. And so this is where, so you think about, you think of your clothes, my glasses. If I think of my glasses, I can't see a thing without glasses. Since I'm a little tiny child, I've had glasses, So these clever people now have developed very thin material. And I've got like plus 13 down here. I've got 3 levels, right? And I'm very long-sighted. I can look into the distance, But so I've got these, but they make clever thin lenses now. It used to be like walking with a saucer on my face, because the glass was so thick. So these clever, intelligent people, now they are not thinking about me for 1 second when they made these glasses, but they are kind. What they did facilitated my life. That's kindness. It's not this personal, they did it for me, which is totally self-centered. You understand what I'm saying? You know yourself if someone doesn't like you, but you're doing your best to be kind, like your daughter who hates you and blames you. You know how heartbreaking it is. You know you're being kind. You know you're doing these things. You know you're helping them because they don't like you. They don't even see it. So you are being kind. So we're not discussing whether we feel it. It's a bit objective about the person. So everything that's ever you infiltrate your life, especially your body. From the second my mind found its way to my mother's fallopian tube, wherever it happened, I don't know where it happened, somewhere there, and joined the sperm. Well, thank you, Father. Thank you, Mum, already, such kindness, providing me with a body. And then my mother, all that period, I was 7 months in the womb, apparently. I came out early, probably impatient as usual. And I came out bottom first. I can't understand. Is it really true when people come out bottom first? Robert, is that true? Babies really come out bottom first. Well, they said I did. But their poor mother must have ripped her poor little vagina to pieces. What happens to ladies whose babies come out bottom first? You have to sew them up. Is that true? Robert, answer me. You're a doctor. Oh, really? God, I think everyone should have C-section. I think birth is total suffering. I mean, for the child, forget the mother. If you did what you do to a baby once it's out of the womb, you'd be put in prison because we call it natural. I'm sorry to be so ridiculous, but I won't go on about it. Anyway, I came out bottom first 2 months early. But while the 7 months I was in there, how do you think one thing we go about, my clothes, my glasses. Well, look at the hard work people put into them. This is the handiwork of so many people. This is the handiwork of so many people. This Band-Aid. I live in a house now and I have knives and I cut things, and I always end up cutting my fingers as well. So if I didn't have a Band-Aid, I'd be splurting blood, you know. So there's people who invented Band-Aids. How kind. This is not a joke. They might be, the person who invented my glasses might be a psychopath. This is not the point here. Kindness isn't contingent on them being sweet to me. It's the fact that someone did something that facilitated my life. That's the definition here, and that's powerful. So then you'd end up with incredible, the kindness of all these people. I mean, your body, okay, the body one. The one thing we think is me and mine is my body. Well, excuse me, what turned me this into this was my mother eating the fishes and the cows and the carrots and the creatures who died. I'm a mountain of little fishes and carrots. Excuse me, where's my body, you know? That's why that bodhisattva that I mentioned, I quoted Curtis Center, I remember saying, who's the action of cutting off his hand to feeding it to a starving animal is as inconsequential as a leaf falling off a tree. I'll never forget those words. That's the person who has no attachment, you know, and recognizes all they see like is others. There's no I in the way, you know. So here, training our mind to be grateful, to be appreciating the things that others do that facilitate my life. This is this other one. All sentient beings are kind, and it's fact. But we don't think of them as kind. As long as, I mean, if I go into the shop and they give me the best glasses, give me a discount, I'll think they're kind. Do you understand? Because it's my right. I deserve it, you know. That's how we think, isn't it? So this is so powerful to think this way. And once you start this way, they talk about this bodhisattva as the always crying bodhisattva. He was in his cave. Or some bodhisattva, I don't know where he was. Anytime he'd think of anything, he'd burst into tears because he thought about all the kindness of sentient beings. They talk about these people, the kindness of sentient beings. I think these people are ridiculous, the kindness of sentient beings, you know. What do you mean they're kind? This is the one. Think about it. It's logic. It's nothing to do with attachment and nothing to do with deserve. I have to talk about this. We've got time? Yeah, I've got 9 minutes. This one for me is heavy duty, okay? Deserve is one of our major points in life. And our love for others is contingent on deserve. So you deserve my love. You deserve me wanting you to be happy because you make me happy. That's no question. That's how we think. So then you try to this equanimity thing, and this, you know, like you say, well, let's say you don't like a certain politician or your mean, ugly grandfather or somebody. He wants to be happy. The first thing we say is to that, immediately, what do you mean he wants to be happy? He doesn't deserve it. This is so huge for us. So what's that about? That's about attachment and aversion. So attachment, another way of putting attachment, it's this incredible sense of entitlement. We all say, you know, I deserve happiness. And then we'll say, I don't deserve suffering. Well, that's what attachment thinks. Attachment thinks I deserve happiness. And when attachment doesn't get what it wants, an aversion arises, what anger arises. So what is anger saying? Anger is saying, how dare that happen to me? I don't deserve it. That's implicit in attachment and anger. I deserve and I don't. So if we analyze it, it's completely irrational. It's completely absurd. If you look in your bank and you say that you see there's not many dollars, you would never say, how dare there be no dollars in my bank? I deserve dollars. What does that imply? It implies that it's someone else's job to put dollars in your bank, right? That's schizophrenic. You don't look at your garden and go, who put weeds in my garden? I don't deserve weeds. That's how we live in life because we have no view of karma. We're completely schizophrenic. Ramayushi would say that. Dualistic, separate, mean, ugly world. I deserve happiness. That means we're sitting there thinking, who's going to make me happy? It's your job to make me happy. That's what attachment thinks. It's totally that way. And aversion is how dare He do that. I don't deserve it. That's the philosophy of attachment and anger. It's completely ingrained, these states of mind. We understand it, we can see. But it's irrational. That's why first practicing karma already conquers that. When you realize that you are the product of you're the handiwork of your past work. Your garden is the handiwork of your work. It's your handiwork. What's in the bank is your handiwork. So when you see the bank, you go, you mightn't like having no dollars, but you know it's your problem. You didn't put enough in, or you spent too much. And you know if there's no weeds in your garden, it's because you didn't pull them out. So you own it. You own it. You understand the cause and effect. There's a dependent arising there. That's the karmic one. Already that'll lessen the self-pity of attachment and the anger and the outrage of anger not getting what it wants. Really and truly, it's incredible. So deserve has got, in a sense, it's literal. If there are weeds in your garden because you didn't pull them out, you deserve weeds. But we see it as brutal kind of meaning. But in a simple sense, if there's money in your bank, you deserve them because you put them there. You see your garden, and equally, we don't look in our garden and see all the lovely veggies and go, well, I wonder who put veggies in my garden, and then greedily eat them all up and hoping someone will put more there for you. That's attachment. It plays no role in your life. Like I'm this innocent victim and people it's their job to make me happy. And how dare they make me suffer? That's how attachment and aversion think. They're demented and they're rooted in ego grasping, no dependent arising, no karma, and that's why we're all crazy. Do you understand? Deserve. Wow. That was 4 minutes. Any questions? Any questions? Any more questions before we go home? So this is all the wisdom wing, really, that's informing our ability to have compassion and love and start to see these things and move forward, move forward, move forward, So you go from equanimity to all being my mum, kindness of the mother, kindness of others. And then the fourth one is conclusion. I must repay their kindness. Conclusion. I must repay their kindness. The next one, you start now on the bits, you bring into the mix the exchanging self for other ones, Go through these gradual stages of first seeing how now we are all equal to others, which is similar to equanimity, where they're equal to each other. And now this point is that everyone out there is equal to me in wanting happiness, not suffering. And then you start to think you're equal to others, and then you gradually exchange, and you start then begin to see others as more. This is really intense stuff, And you get to now love, compassion. Love is may they be happy. All of them now, because they want it, because they don't want suffering. You have compassion. And because you understand karma and the delusions, you can see their suffering nakedly. The rich, the poor, the wackos, the psychopaths, the lot. And even, I think, forget karma. Even forget karma, please. Even forget karma. Once we do the first work, the work of working on your body, speech, and mind, the real point there is to see that your delusions and your negative actions cause you suffering. They are what cause you suffering. That's what Buddha's saying. So when we can see that, that is what informs our ability to see that people who harm are harming themselves. Instead of, how dare they do that? Who do they think they are? Those people don't deserve it. So I always think about a pedophile. Nobody likes a pedophile except their mum. Their mum, and you know why she has compassion? Because she can see that he is harming himself. That's the basis of compassion. But you can't see that until you see it for yourself. That's the wisdom wing. Until you have this unbearable compassion for yourself, that you are sick of suffering and that you are the source of it. That's what compassion is. That's what the very first stage. Then that informs your ability to see, oh my God, we're all in the same boat. Everybody's harming themselves. That's the real basis of real compassion. Not this poor little innocent victim. They deserve it. All that stuff. That's garbage. Are we communicating, people? We've got to use logic. To argue with ego is irrational views. They're like, ego is demented, you know, with craziest views. Load of rubbish. You got to argue with them. Okay, that'll do. Now we're ready for the 6 perfections. Changchup Semchok Rinpoche, Ma Ke Panam Ke Guchi, Ke Panyam Pa Me Pa Yang, Gong Ne, Gong Du, Peba Shok, Gewa Di, Nudu Daglama Sange Drup Yune, Drowa Chikyang Malupa, Dei Sala, Gurpa Shok. And may Holy Dalai Lama live long, long life, keep his wish, keep his promise and live for 20, 30 more years. May Lamas come back quickly. May all the holy beings on this planet, may virtuous people on this planet keep living long because the world needs them. May we keep being virtuous because the world needs us. Never give up, one step at a time, one step at a time, one step at a time. Okay, step by step by step. And delight in your progress. Delight in your progress. Okay, that's it. Okay, people. Thank you, darlings.
We start at 10 o'clock and go from 10 to noon, and then we'll break for lunch between noon and 2. And then we'll start back up from 2 to 4. Sunday Dharma is 10:30 till noon, and then 2 to 4 in the afternoon. Yes. Thank you, Venerable. Good night, everyone online. Hope to see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good